Welcome back to Stroke Warrior Radio, where we remind you that recovery doesn't end with rehab when rehab does. Today's conversation is a very powerful one for me because we're talking about something every survivor wrestles with, the limits we place on ourselves after stroke. There's a difference between the handicap of stroke and the self-imposed limitations that quietly shape how we see ourselves, our future, and what we believe is still possible. I'm joined today by Keith Taylor. Hi, Keith.
Hey Ralph, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. Keith is
Good.
the creator of the Belief program. It's actually Strength After Strokes based program. And together we're diving into chapters one and two of Belief, breaking self-imposed limits, and hopefully we'll get to chapter two, crushing destructive patterns. If not, we'll do our next show. This isn't about toxic positivity. This is about mindset, ownership, and rebuilding confidence. One thought, one choice, one day at a time. Keith, thank you for being here today. Let's get into it.
It sounds great, Ralph. Thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate all that you do. I know you work your tail off, and it doesn't go unnoticed. You're I don't know what to say. You're a great guy, and you work your tail off for everybody. So appreciate you.
Thank you. You're too kind. Today we're going to start with
Mm.
belief, um, breakthrough self-imposed limits. Keith, you make a very clear distinction in your writings and your program between the physical reality of stroke and the self-imposed limits. Tell us about that.
Well, so people struggle all the time with limiting themselves. They just put it on themselves all the time, and especially after having a stroke, right? You have a hard time focusing on the positives. I was just talking to a guy last night. I had a phone call, and he called, and he's like, I just don't feel up to doing anything, and you've got to focus on yourself, and you got to start taking responsibility for yourself, frankly, Ralph. That's what it is, and you're going to have such a better life if you get through these self-imposed limitations that we all put on ourselves.
Read totally. Well, it's what we talk about over here is it's a choice between a stroke warrior or being just a stroke survivor.
Yeah, great. Love
How
it.
how do you help survivors understanding the difference without minimizing their experience?
Understand the difference of what?
Well,
Like,
I mean, there, it's a mindset, I guess. How do you help them understand the difference between being a stroke warrior and a stroke survivor,
oh, now I'm
which I
with you.
guess is the
Okay.
whole belief program. Yeah,
Well, yeah, it is. It's and we can call it a stroke warrior, for sure, because that's what we're doing here is we're helping other stroke survivors. I mean, just like myself, I went through a stroke, you went through a stroke, and it was a tough, tough damn battle. Honestly, so much was lost, but we can talk about that later. But if I didn't get off course too far, you just got to be able to change your mindset again and stop going down the road of, oh crap, my life is over because I had a stroke, and you got to start believing in yourself again, and it takes work, it takes dedication, it takes a commitment to yourself, Ralph. You've got to make the commitment to yourself that it's important enough that you can change those limiting beliefs that we put on ourselves, okay, all the time, and start gaining value in yourself again, okay, and creating that value within so that you know that you are worthy of getting back in the game again. Is that making sense?
yeah, it is. because uh, what I love about the program is you break it down into a few areas. I mean, there's mindset, there's identity, self-worth, those kind of things. Um, Kind of get into that about a little bit what limiting beliefs we have after stroke,
Mm.
regaining confidence, what happens to identity after stroke, those kind of things.
Okay, so we put these limiting beliefs on ourselves, and a stroke can totally change. So let's just openly chat for a few minutes. So you
Yeah, yeah,
have a you have a stroke, right? And a lot of times your spouse or significant other or family member or whatever is helping you, right? Which you got to have. You need that help. I understand that. And then when things start shifting, you have to start taking back some control. And I see this all the time where people have someone who loves them very, very much. They start taking control of the stroke survivor because the stroke survivor just decides that I'm just going to give that up. You've got to start taking that back. You got to start taking that control back and grow your own beliefs in yourself again. Okay. And that was something that was super important to me before I even wrote this program. I looked and looked and looked for something out there that would help people regain their confidence again, right?
yeah.
Change their mindset again, get back into a growth pattern instead of, oh crap, I had a stroke and, life is just here. Listen, you and I both believe in God, and not that everybody does, but most people do. And the question comes up all the time, why would I have, a stroke? Why would this be given to me? And a lot of times we have to look beyond and we have to say, okay, I had this stroke. There must be a reason. And you got to go searching for that reason. I mean, I talk about purpose and stuff like that all the time. And in the program, we talk a lot about purpose. You can't find a new purpose unless you are mentally thinking in those terms, unless you're ready to start releasing some of those self-imposed limitations that you have and moving on.
That's kind of the getting over the I can't do it anymore, isn't it?
Yeah. So, in the program, just as an example, one of the modules that are in there is about you know, building your self-importance. And the first module, I talk about telling a new story. And so, if you're willing to go through the process and write down these limiting beliefs that we all have all the time, limiting beliefs can be a million different things. Looking for something here. I'll never return to a normal life. I'm not sharp enough. You hear that all the time. My family and friends think I'm a changed person. That happened yesterday to the guy I was talking to yesterday. And he's like, where my friends all disappeared. We can talk about that later. Um, and I can't change. So if you write down some of those things that are bothering you, then you go through and you replace those with positive statements. Things like, I know I have what it takes to achieve my goals, whether they're new or not. They're goals. I just got to work hard and I got to study. I've got a lot to offer still, so on and so forth, right? And then the last part of this um, worksheet that I have is then to take action. You know, a lot of times, let's say we catch ourselves in negative thoughts. Happens all the time. You
Yeah.
know, I still do it. I still do it, Ralph. But I have learned to change those thoughts to now be positive. I've had some real one. Sometime I'll tell you a story that I had happen to me in Ben, and I was not happy about it. and
Yeah.
uh, and I kind of went down that road, and then I had to catch myself in that negative spin that was happening and start changing that. And that's the only way, bud, we're gonna really start moving forward is if we can change that self-talk and change our limiting beliefs about ourselves. I hope I didn't go on too far for that.
No, not at all. Because, we talk about loss of identity, I can't statements, and my catchphrase for Stroke Warrior Radio, catch the wave, warriors achieving victories every day.
Mhm.
Is there that, and that for me was the mindset shift I needed, was those little things like, oh, I can walk 100 steps with the walker today instead of just 20. I mean, you have to look at those and sort of a personal reflection, I guess.
Well, let me just say something about what you just said. So, warriors achieving
Victories.
victory every day. So you came up with that, right? But you were focused on how can I move forward in life? What is it that I want to do for me personally? And what could I do that might help other people? And when you find that, it will come to you. I mean, do you think let's talk about before. I mean, when you and I even first met, this was
Yeah.
never even a thought in to you. And then you came up with that, Ralph, because you were persistent and you were committed to finding something new, and you broke through those limiting beliefs about yourself and you found a new purpose. And finding that purpose, bud, is what it's about.
Like that. I like that. I appreciate this statement about me too. Um, because and mine lasted 6.5 years. I mean, it was self-limiting. I had limits from other people. I had as good as it's going to get, all of that crap. I mean,
Yeah,
most of that is all self-imposed, isn't it?
it totally is. I mean, we can blame other people or doctors or whatever that say, oh, like I was told, you have about a year and a half is as good as it's going to get for you. And
Yeah.
and dude, I bought into that for a while. And then I was like, wait a minute, this is just bull crap, and we can continue. You have to decide for yourself, though. I can't make that decision for Ralph or for Jim or for Carrie or for anybody. They have to make that decision. And so, what I would tell your listeners and our listeners right now is you've got to make a decision that you are going to break through those limitations that you've got. Is it going to be easy? Probably not. Are you going to get frustrated? Yeah. Are you going to take a step forward and two steps back sometimes? Absolutely. But you've got to keep doing it. What's the alternative?
Yeah. Well, and I, it's interesting that you brought up what changed for me is I think one of the things that changed is I started to take a personal inventory through my journaling. I
Mm,
did, I have I want to call it an anger journal, and I have a daily journal.
mhm.
So I've gone through and recognized, I think that's the question I'm asking. How do you get through recognizing those self-destructive patterns?
How do you get through recognizing them? Well, I think you recognize them. Okay. Um, it's getting through them that is tough. And so, what you got to start doing is just like you said, journaling. I have a recorded message that I put on my phone. It's in there. There's a thing in here called voice memos, and I'd play it for you, but I don't. It's personal. And so I took
Yeah.
the time to record myself. It's like a 5 minute thing, and it's about my goals and where do I want to go. And for a long time, I listened to that every day. and then I journaled. Because if we don't get the crap out and start getting some good in, we're going to live in that crap. We've got to have a focus on where we want to go. And listen, a lot of folks after a stroke, their concern is, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was I was ex-worker. I did all this, and this is what I did. And now I'm older, maybe 50s, 60s, 70s. You could be younger too, but anyway. And now you're like, well, I can't do anything. Yes, you can do something new. You've just got to open your mind, and you've got to spend some quiet time and reflect. And it will come, but you've got to spend that time for yourself.
What do you think? And you mentioned it in the program, um, the personal reflection prompt for someone listening right now who feels defined by, I guess, what they've lost, what they think they've lost. What's the first mindset shift that they need to make?
You got to make a decision that it's time to move forward. You got to make the decision that you don't want to stay stuck in your limitations, that you've got to start building that belief back in yourself, and and overcoming some of this negative self-talk.
Yeah. Then your second area in belief, and this chapter anyway, is crush your destructive patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about a couple of those things. For example, you mentioned the sympathy trap. What's that?
Um, it reinforces that limitation in your life. If you have a sympathy, we'll call it sympathy trap, whatever you want to call it, but it's sympathy. What happens is we start believing that, and we let it fuel our own self pity. Okay, it continues to grow fast, and we've got to recognize it, and then we've got to start shifting our minds to the positive side. It's not easy, bud, as you and I both know, but it can be
Mhm.
done, and it has to be done if you're going to move forward and have a great life after stroke.
Is it, and it's kind of I think you said it, maybe it's just my note. Um, we kind of seek validation or sympathy, and it feels good in the moment, but harmful over time.
Mm,
You
love
know,
that.
that short-term growth versus long-term growth. I
Mm,
think one of the things that you and I have always talked about is the daily belief changes, the daily steps, the daily tools you use. Isn't that get you out of those? I mean,
absolutely.
yeah,
The
other
the thing is,
suggestions.
the thing is, Ralph, is like, look at yourself. You've worked your tail off, and I've worked my tail off, frankly.
Yeah.
Um, and you've got to make the decision that it's worth it. It's worth it. I mean, do you want to stay in that self pity forever? Do you want to stay that person that people look at and think, oh, poor Ralph, poor Keith, um, and that's all they think? No, uh, come on, it's you got to work for it, and once you do, things are going to start getting better. It doesn't mean that life's going to be all roses. Everybody has stuff that comes at them.
Yeah, stroke or not.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
You described showing determination creates a support bubble, and I don't want to put down care partners, but sometimes that care partners can try and do too much for the survivors, and
Mhm.
survivors will let them take over their daily tasks, their daily uh, feelings, and that kind of thing. How do you suggest people get through that support bubble?
That's a good one right there. That's a great question because A lot of times that support bubble are people that either A, you've been with for 100 years, or they're just their family members or whatever, and they really, really care about you. And so they're trying to take over. Let me tell you a quick story on that. So my wife, after I had my stroke, okay, she goes back to work months later. I'm home alone. Let's shift out of that and go back to Babette. So Babette is at work, and a lady came up to her and asked her how things were going. And this lady said to her, my dad had a stroke, and my mom did everything and never gave him a voice again. And Babette took that to heart and came home and said, "You're going to have a voice. I'm going to listen." Not only said, she acted on that. And so, if you're the stroke survivor, sometimes you have to be willing to say, "Hey, what if you had aphasia?" Okay, and I talk to a lot of aphasia people, and you can't always talk or get your words out, and so you get cut off all the time. You've got to be willing to say, "Hey, I need time. I need to be able to get what's on my mind off as well." And there is your start. That's the beginning to gaining that confidence back.
It's part of it is too that inner destructive voice that can be brutal after stroke. What's one practical way um, that survivors and their care partners, I guess, can begin replacing negative self-talk with something constructive?
Well, it's just kind of like what we just talked about. You got to make the commitment, okay, that you want to do that. It's a decision that you've got to decide, I'm going to do this. And then, write out, I would suggest writing out some things, get some quiet time, write out. And if you can't write, record it on your phone, do whatever you can, tell somebody else, however you get that, is what you need to do. Then you've got to bring that into your value system, and get those connected. And then, just make yourself a commitment that you're going to be studying that and listening to it and or writing about it or whatever. That is the key. That's the key to getting the growth back, is hearing your own self-talk, okay, and changing these destructive patterns and limitations, and getting that on paper so you can move forward. I hope I'm not going too far on this, but that's what it takes. It takes a lot
No,
of work.
no, I don't think so. And one of the things that's interesting about the program that I didn't realize for 7 years post-stroke is choosing the right people. That's the next step. I didn't know, for example, physical therapist. There's a difference between a neurophysical therapist and a physical therapist. A physical therapist is workers' comp. Neuro is stroke.
Yeah.
I
And,
mean, little things like that. And you emphasize the importance of coaches, mentors, or accountability partners. What do we look for in someone who supports growth rather than dependency?
well, okay. So here's an example. So you were just talking about the professional side of having that. That is expensive. It whether you are insured enough to get that kind of help or not, I don't know. That is why, Ralph, I started this. That's why I did the B.A.S.E program, because people needed a way to start doing this without that. And then I'm not patting myself on the back, but I became a certified coach and stuff, so I could even do one-on-ones with people, because um, without charging them an arm and a leg to do that.
Yes.
So you've got to find someone that can help you. And a lot of times, the family members and stuff, they're too close. They know the answers. We talk about when we started the men's group. we started the men's group so that guys could go and say what was really on their mind to other stroke survivors and not worry about it. You've got to have an outlet that you can talk about what's really on your mind. As an example, Ralph, I really struggled because when I lost my job, basically when I was let go of my company, um, what a hit, man. I mean, and as a man, whether in today's world it's not so much, but in my time period, the man was who did most of the bread winning or whatever. And so you just feel like crap because now you can't make money like you used to, and life has
Yeah.
changed. And so you got to find somebody to talk to about that kind of stuff, somebody who gets it.
Yeah, they didn't warn me about the mental health or the those kind of depression things. Those kind of things are out there. So I had to find the right people to get through that. I mean,
Absolutely.
they don't they don't tell us it's going to be the most difficult thing we've ever done in our life.
Yeah. And
So,
dude,
um,
I am not minimizing that either, Ralph. I'm not minimizing that it is the most difficult thing, and it's a hard road, but it is. I want the listeners to know this. A lot of people have a stroke and they think, oh crap, in a month or two I'll be back, and dude, it's not that way, and it's hard.
well, in my case, and you've heard me say it before, it's the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life, but it became the most rewarding thing. I told you the story about going back to Tucson, and my daughter said, "Dad, you're better than you were before your stroke." And that was
How
after, my stroke became remarkable,
how
and
awesome is that?
it's incredible. It's
Mhm.
incredible for one of my kids to say that to me is really incredible, you know.
But Ralph,
But
it's because, buddy, you took the mindset. Did it happen overnight? Hell no. You took
oh
the
God, no.
mindset, yeah, that I'm going to get better, and you started on the journey, and it might have been a step forward, two steps back, then two steps forward, and a half a step. I mean, it took time and energy, but that's what you got to do. And so I'm not trying to minimize that it is easy or say it's easy. It's not, but it can be done.
Well, and I just lost my train of thought, but I think I've got it. Uh, one, I think one of the things too is the self-belief system um, on what normal is now. Like I
Yeah.
said, I did 20 steps today. Today I did 100. Um, there's a mindset there on those little goals, accepting,
We're going to get, and we're going to get more into that as we go through the B.A.S.E program,
right.
because life is different. Life is totally different, and our goals are going to be different than they were before. But that's okay, and I see that being one of the biggest struggles that people have, is like, well, my life is over because now you've got to open your mind up a little bit, just as you did, and just as I have.
Well, and you're very clear in your program that commitment doesn't mean no setbacks.
Right.
How do survivors stay committed when progress feels slow?
uh, how do they
At
stay
least what
committed?
do you teach?
Each individual story on that is a little different. I'll be honest. It depends on what it is that took them off base, really. But you just got to go back to your the writings, the journaling, the recordings, the stuff that is important to you. Now, listen, one other quick thing about that, and it's on topic. If you set a goal after your stroke and you feel like you found a new purpose, well, that doesn't mean it's the only purpose. Can be ongoing and moving all the time. we can find a new purpose all the time, over time. And so, does that make sense?
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah, it
I'm
does
answering your
because
question.
it's, I what I'm trying to get at, and I think you do this very well in the program, is set a goal, but if you get halfway to that goal, that's still good,
Yeah.
and there's an acceptance thought process that you need to go through as well, and believing in yourself and what you have accomplished.
One of the
That,
things that I one of the things that I challenge people to do, that I coach or even just talk to, is, you know, keep track. So, whether that's on paper, in a notebook, in a journal, whatever, if you keep track, you will see those little steps of progress that you're making all the time. And that is the motivation that you need to continue on the journey.
yeah, I agree. It's like one of my pet things is, and my goals is, I had it so hard a time remembering when you get a validation code on a computer, for example. I had to
Mhm.
write it down, constantly writing down stuff. I've thrown so many papers away. And now it's like, okay. And I just go to the space and enter it in because I remembered it. To me, that was a huge, gigantic thing. So,
Well, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question on that subject. And we're talking about belief. Did you believe that you could start doing that again?
no, no,
What
until I
shifted?
saw progress. Progress shifted. I realized that, there were other little things I can do, like acronyms and that kind of stuff that
Which
I can do.
which grew your belief. Okay. That
Yes.
grew your belief in that again, so that then you knew that you could do that.
Yeah. And one of the things too is, and you talked about this a little bit, is your comparison and external noise can be really damaging during recovery. So how do you help survivors tune out other people's timelines and opinions?
That's a good one right there. Um,
I had to accept, friends didn't know how to deal with me. I had to let them go,
yeah.
or they let me go,
Well,
but I had to accept that.
so that's a great one. So one time, I don't know if this story resonates or not, but one time I was in a grocery store and I couldn't talk very well. I know you've probably heard this story. And
Yeah.
yeah, and the lady in front of me was like, you know, making fun of me or did something that ticked me off. And at that specific moment, I made a decision. I don't care what other people think. This is my life. And it's time for me to start moving forward in my life, because I'll probably never see that woman ever again. And, even if I did, I wouldn't recognize it. But, we have to make that decision to move on for us, for ourselves, within ourselves, and get rid of those destructive things that are happening out there. I don't, again, I hope I'm answering your questions that you're asking.
Yeah, because negativity often shows up when we're on the right path. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, sometimes we just have to. I think one of the biggest words I had to learn was acceptance,
Yeah.
and put that in my belief system. It was like, well, okay, that woman's got a problem. It's not my problem, you know?
Love that.
Yeah,
So when I hear you say that, that is an acceptance toward letting that go. It's like she thinks that or he thinks that or whatever. That's their problem, not mine. I love that. That was a good one right there.
yeah. And it's hard. I mean, you know what we're going through up here right now, and it's just you have to count to five maybe and learn the patience. I mean, there's a whole bunch of feelings in there that you have to go through. And once you start accepting those limitations and believing that you can get past them, at least for me, that's how it's working for me. I
Well,
have to,
so the point that you're making is, at least for me, you said, and
yeah.
that's why that question kind of befuddled me, because every person is a little different, and you have to find what their hmm,
Could you repeat that?
every person is different. And so it's not easy to just answer that question in a straight on way. It's like people will find their own thing, but you sometimes you have to help them find it, but they will find it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's hard work. It's not going to be easy, but it's when our first meeting, you helped me believe that there is a better way,
Mm-hmm.
and I really appreciate that to this day. Um, and I think what you taught me, and this was just in our first lunch when we first met, is the stroke changed my body, but it doesn't define my worth, your
Right.
purpose, or my future. And that meant so much to me. Encapsulate, chapters one and two, or what? Um, Breakthrough self-imposed limits, crush your destructive patterns. Encapsulate that in a summary for us.
Well,
Close us
we
there.
okay, everybody has self-imposed limitations, but after having a stroke, they are very, very present in our life. We don't have that belief in ourselves that we have to reignite. We have to reignite once again that belief in ourselves, and so that we can have the confidence and and the power within to move forward. Okay, and so breaking those self-imposed limitations and crushing the destructive patterns that are going on in our mind all the time. It doesn't happen overnight, but it can happen. And I think that both you and I are you know um, what's the word I'm looking for, Ralph? I think we've done that in a lot of way, and so we're proof that it can be done. And so, but you've got to um, get on the road and start doing this.
Even though we're proof, it doesn't mean that we don't have struggles coming.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
daily.
Yeah. And we're never, I can't say that I'll never struggle again because 10 years post-stroke and here I am, you
Well,
know.
me too, bud. But that's life. Life is full of this, and what we have to do is be able to identify that is happening, okay, and choose to put it in a box and continue to move our life forward. We have the choice to do that. We have to make that choice to do that.
And I'm going to ask you kind of off topic, but not. What are some of the tools? For example, um, there's social media out there, there's YouTubes, there's support groups. I mean, you run Stroke Warrior Radio or Stroke Awareness Oregon's Stroke Warrior support group twice a month. Where is that something that helps with the belief system, or is it an option, or is it necessary?
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to say it
I
in a
know
two
it's all
part.
loaded, but
Pardon me.
good. I know it's a
So
little bit loaded.
yeah, that's okay. There's two sides of this. If you're looking for a general outcome, and you just need somebody to listen to and also help you grow. Because in our stroke survivor meetings, we have a lot of speakers and stuff like that that help with one thing or another. And if you're looking for a general growth perspective, that's it. That's a great way to do that. If you're looking to make more focused growth in something specific that you are wanting to do, that's where somebody like myself or getting a coach, getting somebody to help you through that. I'm telling you, Ralph, I believe in that so much. I mean, I still have coach. You know, you got to have somebody that you can tell everything to that will not judge you and will help you continue on your journey. That's my own opinion, and that's there it is.
Well, I'm going to add to that opinion. Again, I didn't realize that a psychologist and a neuropsychologist are two different things. And
Mm-hmm.
10 years post-stroke, I'm going to start seeing a neuropsychologist in 2 weeks. I mean, there you have to, I had to look for tools because they're not given to us
Absolutely,
as very easily.
absolutely. Another thing that drives me bonkers, frankly. You go to the hospital, you see who you need to see, and they boot you out. And unless you have a real problem, come back. You might have therapy or something like that, which I had like 3 therapy sessions, and that was it. And so you've got to be self advocating for your own good. Absolutely.
So, and how do people get in touch with Strength After Stroke and Keith Taylor's base program?
Well, so you can go to strengthafterstroke.com and you can look at some stuff there. My information, me personally is Keith, Keith, at strengthafterstroke.com. Love to hear from anybody who has questions, who wants to chat, whatever. Bud, I know that my programs are I do charge a little bit, but it's really low. And I'll tell you what, man, if somebody needs help, I'm going to find a way to help them. That's it, period.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Keith, I know belief isn't pretending things are easy. It's about recognizing the power to grow, adapt, and rebuild. I want to thank you for reminding us recovery is not going back. It's about moving forward with intention, courage, and belief. Um, Anything you want to add today?
The only thing I'm going to add, Bud, is that I appreciate you, Ralph. And what you're doing is incredible. I know you get tired of hearing it from me, but it's amazing what you've done. And I count you as a great friend, and I'm just very proud of you.
Thank you very much. Well, next chapter, next part of belief we're gonna do is release your limiting beliefs and renew your value from within. That'll be our next show. And thank you all for listening. To every survivor listening, your life isn't over. It's just rebooting. Keep showing up. Keep choosing growth. And as always, catch the wave. Thanks, Keith.
Thanks, bud.